All right, class, let's take a look at these boards. Topic, Great War, World War I. Essential question, how did World War I change Europe and the world forever? This was a total war. This is the first time that there was a war in Europe as well as around the world. World War I involved mass civilian populations, conscription or mass draft. Most able-bodied men in especially Germany, Austria, Hungary, France, and Britain were taken into military service in Russia. In some cases, civilians were targeted, and this was very unfortunate, but there were hundreds of thousands of millions of civilians killed during this time. Media made heroes from battle and promoted nationalism. So the media, for the first time, in a lot of places, they took cameras out, they took photographs of these huge battles that were taking place around Europe. The enemy was demonized on both sides. So if you were in the British Isles, you might, or the French, you might see media that portrays the Germans as Huns or barbarians, whereas if you were in Germany, you might also see the same kind of demonization of the British or the French. Okay, economic production. The free market, that capitalism was abandoned in favor of strong central planning, and this was necessary for the production of the wartime necessities. Women replaced men in the workforce. This began to change the role of women in society. Rationing of food and scarce goods. So not only were the soldiers affected, but the total populations of the countries of Europe were affected as well. Both France and Germany go to a dictatorship to control the economy. And in Germany, it was a totalitarian style of dictatorship, which was the first, but not the last, in Europe. All right, diplomacy during the war. Italy enters the war on the side of the Allies. So originally they were part of the Triple Alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary, but they soon changed. Some other diplomacy, the Zimmermann Note or Zimmermann Telegram. Germany proposed an alliance with Mexico against the United States. Mexico would get Southwest United States if they were to win. So the Zimmermann Telegram was a telegram that was intercepted by the British, and the United States used that telegram as a reason to go against and get included into the war against the Germans. The Balfour Note of 1917, Arabs and Jews were promised a country if they fought for the Allies against the Turks. But it was kind of counterintuitive, because how would they supply a country for the Palestinians and the Israelites and the Jewish people? And that is still a battle that we're fighting today. Now, Wilson's 14 points, he came up with these 14 points even before the war had ended. President Wilson proposes 14 points to end the war. Example, so here's a few of them. No secret treaties. Because of the alliance system, there was quite a few problems due to that secret treaties. Free to the seas for the navies, adjust colonial claims. But the 14th point of the 14 points was an international organization for national security. And that is what we have today in the form of the United Nations. But the people did not like Wilson's 14-point plan. Now, at the end of the war, the Meuse-Argonne offensive, the United States enters the war and helps stop the German offensive. British, French, and American troops push back. So since Russia was knocked out of the war or taken out of the war due to the Russian Revolution, there were many troops on what would be the eastern front of Germany that were then able to be transferred by train to the western front, which is where they put together this offensive in the Meuse-Argonne forest. Unfortunately for them, but fortunately for the United States and our allies, we were able to stop that. And then with the reinforcement of American troops, or they were called doughboys at the time, they were able to push back and make a breakthrough. Central powers sought peace based on the 14-point plan. So they thought this was an equitable plan, and that's what they were hoping for. Austria-Hungary surrenders November 3rd, Germany on November 11th, and Wilhelm II was forced to abdicate and flee to Holland. Now, November 11th, as you know, is when we have our, it used to be called Armistice Day, and now it's our day in which we honor veterans. Paris Peace Conference and the Versailles Treaty. The big four that were there: Lloyd George from Britain, Clemenceau from France, Wilson from the United States, Orlando from Italy, but no Germany. Germany was not allowed to attend the conference. They just had to take whatever was decided. Now, from that conference and Versailles Treaty, mandates which limited colonies for the Central Powers. So any German colonies out there, they did not have very much influence anymore. Article 231 and this Versailles Treaty was quite extensive. Placed blame on Germany, and they would be punished in terms of money and land and other things. In particular in money, within the last 5 years, they just paid off the reparations that were enforced upon them. So it's what, 60, 70, 80 years later, they were still paying this debt off, which just ended shortly. League of Nations was created, but not very powerful, and the U.S. Senate failed to pass it. So there wasn't very much backing in the United States pertaining to this. Now, the impact of World War I on European society: 10 million soldiers were killed, 10 million civilians, and in the Russian Revolution, 15 million people were killed. Women gained the right to vote in Britain and in Germany. Nobility lost much of its influence, especially in Germany, Austria-Hungary, and in Russia. Okay, into royal dynasties. So the Habsburgs were removed from Austria, had ruled for 500 years. Romanov, Russia, 300 years. Hohenzollern, removed from Germany, 300 years. The Ottoman Empire had ruled for 500 years. These all came crashing down. The political map was redrawn. Creation of Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Yugoslavia. So this power vacuum that was included Austria-Hungary and Germany, it all collapsed, including Russia because of the Russian Revolution. Germany split into by the Polish corridor, which is something that Hitler would then bring to the table 20, 30 years later. And then you had the Russian Revolution, which results in the first communist country. And that's where we'll pick up with our next set of boards, the Russian Revolution. Huge.